Greetings to all the students. I welcome you all on the YouTube platform of NEXT IAS, and you are watching Daily News Analysis, an initiative where we discuss important articles published in the newspapers and the PIB. What exactly and to what extent we need to cover topics from the newspapers, we already have covered in What to Read initiatives. Do follow that. Now, with the help of today's video, the topics that we are going to discuss are small finance banks, citizenship, Public Accounts Committee, and recently passed Coastal Shipping Bill 2025. And in decorated session, the topic that we are going to discuss will be impact of tariff on India's economy or other thing. So now, without wasting time, let's start with the first topic that is visible over your screen, which is AU Small Finance Bank gets universal banking license from the RBI. So now there are two things that you need to understand. The first one is a small finance bank and the universal bank, right? This is the very basic thing that you need to discuss and need to understand as well. So what are the small finance banks? They are the part of differentiated banks. How different are the differentiated banks? They are of three types. First one is a small finance bank, second is payment bank, and the third one is local area bank, right? This is the exact part of the differentiated banks. What are they exactly? Differentiated banks are those who cater to the specific needs of a particular segment of the people. So this is the work and the aim of the differentiated bank. So ultimately, they will be helpful for the financial inclusion as well, right? Now, do we have any difference between the differentiated banks and the universal banks? Yes, there are differences based on the three parameters. So the first, the difference between universal bank and the differentiated banks will be of three parts. First, the difference lies in three parts. First, the account of capital requirement. The capital requirement for the differentiated banks are quite lesser compared to the universal bank. Second, the area of operation. And for say the local area bank is limited with its operation within the particular district, something like this is the concept. Third, the scope of activities. The scope of activities. And I mentioned what are the scope of activities? That they are quite limited with the services that they are going to offer to the people, especially segmented to the needs of the people, and that to very, very specific needs, not the much needs, right? So this is the exact difference between the universal bank and the differentiated banks, and a small finance bank is one of the part of this differentiated banks, right? So now moving ahead to the what exactly the small finance banks are. Small finances are niche financial institutions licensed by the RBI to deliver essential banking services to low income groups and underserved segments. All those people who are not the part of the banking segment and not be able to cater the more and more services from the side of banks, right? They offer include microfinance, micro enterprise loans, savings, insurance, and other basic financial products, right? Now, what are the objectives? Objective is to promote the financial inclusion by offering banking services to individuals excluded from the mainstream banking, right? आप इसको ऐसे समझ सकते हैं that the government of India in 2014 initiated प्रधानमंत्री जन धन योजना. So प्रधानमंत्री जन धन योजना was an initiative by the government of India to promote the financial inclusion. That means the government wants more and more people to come and participate in the banking activity, and that is why that the zero balance concept started. You go to a bank, the bank people will say that deposit minimum 2,500, 5,000, 4,000, 3,000, depends on the banks to banks. But the government gave this idea that there should be a zero account balance, right? So that was the part of this financial inclusion aspect. Now second, to provide access to the small ticket credit, savings, insurance, and the other financial products for sure, right? For say loans and something. So this is the objective of the small finance banks. Now, what is the exact eligibility criteria of the small finance bank? So the first one is that the resident individuals or professionals, either individually or jointly, with a minimum of 10 years of the senior level experience in the banking and the financial services. So you have worked in the 10 years in the banking industry, you may apply for the small finance bank, right? One more thing as well, for say NBFCs, microfinance institutions, local area bank, right? Even if you are in this category, you may able to ask for the RBI for the small finance bank license. Now, resident control entities such as MFS, NBFC, local bank, this is the same thing we have just discussed. Now, urban cooperative banks interested in conversion must ensure full compliance with RBI guidelines before transition to SBI. So, there are specific guidelines that are there based on which these things are being practiced. Now, there are specific to key regulatory requirements as well. Before that, one thing that we forgot to mention, that there itself we need to understand that in 2013, the RBI governor, the ex-RBI governor, Mr. Raghuram Rajan Sahab, initiated or tried to formulate or tried to create three different committees for the three different objects. One committee was this Nachiketa More committee. Nachiketa More committee. This Nachiketa More committee gave the recommendation of creation of small finance banks and the payment banks. And then afterwards, onward 2015-16, we got to know that this entire process of introduction or giving the license with the form of small finance banks and the payments bank came into the picture. So you need to know about this committee for sure, right? Now the key regulatory requirements. The first one is the capital adequacy. So the minimum capital to risk-weighted asset ratio of 15%. Before that as well, the minimum paid up equity voting capital is 200 crores. Earlier it was 100 crores, but now the government has revised it and made it clear that 200 crores will be there. Plus priority sector lending. This is very important thing with respect to the small finance banks and the payments bank both. That 75% of their adjusted net bank credit must go to PSL. What are the priority sector lendings? For say renewable sector, energy sector, manufacturing, health, education, etc. 18 are there in the numbers at this moment. So they are the part of the priority sector lending that government wants to provide loans to the companies who are catering in these 18 sectors specifically. So this is the norm of this PSL. Plus rural outreach. One of the key requirements is that you ought to open 25% of the branches in the rural areas, right? Or in the unbanked rural areas. The purpose is so that you ultimately serve the purpose of financial inclusion. ऐसा ना हो जाए कि आप सिर्फ शहरों तक ही लगातार खोल के बैठ जाए, right? Then again the banking activity will definitely reach out of the people of the rural areas. That is why there is a norm, right? One more thing to add as well, that even after that, just to promote the financial inclusion at the very grassroots level of the rural areas, the government of India even promoted Indian post payment banks, where the post offices was giving the charge of the taking care of the banking activities. Although this is a very different concept and we'll not able to talk about this thing, right? But again, coming back to the small finance bank, this is the part of financial inclusion, and IPPB are the extended version of the financial inclusion needed to incorporate the rural areas. More than as well, very important point as well, that nearby 50% of the loans were given in the 25 lakh corpus. So आप 50% तक का जो लोन दे रहे हो, it has to be in the 25 lakh segment, right? Plus as well that there is a legal status as well. For say the company or the banks, right? They must be registered as a public limited company under the Companies Act 2013 and the Banking Regulation Act 1914 and RBA Act 1934. So that means the small finance banks are being governed with the help of three laws. The first is Companies Act 2013, second Banking Regulation Act 1949, third is RBA Act 1934. So this is the exact parameter with which you need to prepare this thing for the UPSC part. One very specific thing as well, which you definitely need to understand, which is very important as well for the understanding as well, that The government says in its applications that for say small finance banks, so the promoters initial contribution of equity capital has to be at least 40%, right? But even the same part, the RBI says that in the coming 12 years, that means from the date of the commencement of the banking activity, it must be reduced to the 26% only, right? So this is one very major aspect with respect to the small finance bank that you need to understand. Now, this is the previous year's question paper that has been asked by the UPSC in 2017, right? This is a very simple question, and perhaps you people must have understood that this is more about the financial inclusion aspect, right? And this is a practice question over your screen. Practice it thoroughly. Now, the second topic that we are going to discuss is citizenship. Why this news? The news is that there is a particular person, Dr. Nanikraz Khanumal. He said that the government has given him the citizenship. So now we need to understand what is the citizenship, how in what it may be granted, or things like this, right? One more thing, that he was given citizenship under the provision of section 151A of the Citizenship Act 1955. Now, what is the Citizenship Act 1955? This act lays down the rules and the conditions under which Indian citizenship can be acquired or terminated. And what are the constitutional basis? That citizenship falls under the union list. Again, very prelims based information. A domain which is controlled by the Parliament of India only, right? That means state has no say regarding the citizenship of any resident of the particular state. Only say has to be from the side of Government of India. Second, it covered under part 2 of the Constitution between the articles 5 to 11. This again important for the state pieces perspective. And notably, the Constitution does not define the term citizenship. This is very specific information that you need to understand, that the Government of India does not define the term citizen. Now, the modes with which the Constitution says that a person can be given the citizenship of India, in what manner? So, the first is by birth, that a person born in India or after January 2026, the 26th of January 1950, subject to the condition based on the date of birth and citizenship status of the parents. Second, by descent, that means a person born outside of India can be granted citizenship if either parent was an Indian citizen at the time of the birth, or the rules applicable by the different dates. That means the rules framed by the Parliament of India further. Third, by registration. There are certain categories of person, for say spouse of Indian citizen, the person of India origin residing in India for a specific period, something like this. They can acquire citizenship through applications and the government approval. And what are all those things? We will discuss just after this slide, need not to worry. Fourth one is by naturalization. For say, the foreigners can acquire Indian citizenship while residing in India for a prescribed period, usually 12 years, and fulfilling other qualifications laid down by the Act itself. And the last, by territorial incorporation, means if any foreign territory becomes part of India, the government may specify the person in the territory who shall be the deemed Indian citizen. So, for say any foreign territory, that means the government of India, if even in future acquires one territory, so all those people will get the this citizenship for India as well. Now, the categories, the point we just discussed, the third part, right, that the by registration. So, what are those categories and in which manner the eligibility conditions required for those people? So, first is person of India origin. They are the people who are residing in India for 7 years or residing abroad but originally from undivided India. Second, foreign spouse of Indian citizens, that means one foreign girl married to the Indian person and living in India for 7 years before applying. Third, person with Indian parentage, that means at least one parent is Indian citizen, either parent was a citizen of independent India, or the applicant has raised in India for 12 months prior to application. So matlab you just need to live in here for 12 months with the condition that one of your parent has to be Indian, and you may apply for the citizenship of India. Overseas citizen of India, it is registered as OCI by 5 years and resided in India for 12 months before applying, right? So the minor children are if both parents are the Indian citizens, right? For say the parents moved some outside and they gave birth to a particular person, a particular boy or a girl. So even that minor children, if the both of the parents are Indian citizen, they may apply for the Indian citizenship easily. So now this is the practice question visible over your screen. Do practice it and let us know the answer in the message section as well. Now, Public Account Committee. Why this topic? Because the Chief Minister of Delhi seeks the PSC probe in the CAG report for say that they say that the one of the political party misused the fund in its political gains. So now two things are, the first is the PAC, the Public Account Committee. This is again very specific needs, the what exactly it is. So now Public Account Committee, it is one of the three major committees of the Parliament to scrutinize the money aspect. What those three are? The first one is Estimate Committee, this is the first one. Public Account Committee is the second one, and Committee on Public Undertakings is the third one. Estimate Committee is the largest committee with the 31 members, right? Public Account Committee is the second largest members with the 22 members, and Public Committee or Committee on Public Undertakings even has this 22 members. So this is specially linked with your prelims examination. Do follow this. Now, the authority. Article 105, there are parliamentary privileges, and Article 118, the power to make rules for the parliamentary procedures enshrined in there as well. Now, establishment. This PAC was introduced in 1921 under the Government of India Act 1990. This is very specific prelims based information. Do follow it. Right? The PAC finds its location in Government of India Act 1919. Right? And it formed annually under Rule 308 of the Lok Sabha's Rules of Procedure. Tenure will be 1 year. Then afterwards, again, a Public Account Committee will be created by the Speaker of the Lok Sabha. The chairman will be appointed by the Speaker of the Lok Sabha only, right? And ministers are barred from committee membership to ensure neutrality. Nature, it is just advisory in body, right? So its recommendations are not binding, but ultimately Public Account Committees or the Estimate Committees or the Committee of Public Undertakings are bound to give the suggestions and the reasons specifically that in what manner they find their findings, so that a transparency will be maintained within the house itself. So although it is not binding in nature, but it does have a major role to play in the political domain as well, right? Now the functions of the PAC. First is it examines the appropriation account, what it is, that how funds granted by the parliaments were spent, first thing. Second, the finance accounts of the Union Government of India. Third, the CAG audit process as well, that in what manner exactly and how specifically they have audited the the exact revenue expenditure and the performance of different ministries, the autonomous bodies, something like this. They exclude the public sector undertakings, for which we have a very different committee we just already discussed, and which, yes, the thing what we have discussed. And PAC scrutinizes both expenditure and underspending, ensuring the accountability in the budget use as well. Underspending, for say the government gave you 100 rupees, but you were able to spend only 70 rupees. So what exactly led to the situation that you will not be able to spend the 100 rupees? This is the accountability, this is the transparency in the funding system, right? Now the significance, of course, expert engagement. Enable MPs to consult domain expert and officials for in-depth study on the complex issues. The proper debate culture will be there. A proper questions will be asked. Builds political consensus. Committee proceedings are closed door, allowing freer discussion and bipartisanship cooperation. That means MPs from a different political parties can come on the part and can discuss their views with each other. So a political consensus will be built, right? Third, policy oversight. The committee gives recommendation to the government which must be reported back. And I told you, it will definitely ensure the accountability and the transparency in the political domain itself. So if they have asked a question to the particular government, then the government must reply back, otherwise there will be a different kind of uproar, or the opposition people may ask or raise the question to the government to give the answers. Now this is the practice question visible over your screen. Do practice it and let us know the answer as well. Now there are two questions actually, practices, and let us know the answer in the message section. Now the fourth topic of this today's DNA, this Coastal Shipping Bill 2025. Now we know that Parliament clears Coastal Shipping Bill 2025 to boost India's coastal economy. Right? This bill was introduced, or you say it was earlier passed by the Lok Sabha in April 2025. Right? It actually modernizes the legal framework for the shipping, the coastal shipping or something. Right? And now it has been passed by the Rajya Sabha as well. Right? This Rajya Sabha passed the bill on 17th of August, and we know that once it will get the nod of the President of India, right, then the bill will become an act and it will be applicable all over India. Right? Now it is a part of trio of the major maritime reforms passed in the 2025. This is very important. First, Merchant Shipping Bill, Carriage of Goods by Sea Bill, and Coastal Shipping Act. Now the point that comes to our mind is that why the government of India is thinking regarding the maritime reforms. So two things comes to our domain very clearly. The first is that coastal shipping offers the lowest carbon footprint among the major transport modes. So definitely it is going to help the environment sustainable or environment the limiting the environment degradation. Right? This is the first thing. The second thing, which is equally important, the second thing is that there is a data given by the Ministry of Environment and the Forest. They says, perhaps in 2021-22, they gave the data. The data says that transport sector contributes to around 10 to 11% of India's greenhouse gas emission. Right? So government of India, with the target of achieving net carbon neutrality by 2070, right, or achieving it earlier, they are focusing on different areas where they can reduce this greenhouse gas emission process. So these two are the reasons because of which the focus of the government of India has been towards passing the bills or moving the aspect. Right? So the objectives of the particular shipping bill now, that it promotes sustainable and cost effective coastal shipping by shifting freight movement away from the road and rail to more energy efficient waterways. The point we just discussed, the exact thing. Second, it targets to increase the coastal cargo share to 230 million metric tons by 2030 and reduce logistic cost, traffic congestion and the pollution. Third, it supports the broader goals of national logistic policy and the Atmanirbhar Bharat, right? aligning with the forwarded based policies. Right? What are the key features in the bills? The first is it replaces the outdated provisions of the Part 14 of the Merchant Shipping Act 1958 with a dedicated modern legal structure tailored for the Indian needs. Second, it aligned with the global cabotage forms and India's maritime Amrit Kal Vision 2047 to unlock the economic potential of the 7,500 plus kilometer coastline of the India map wise. Right? This is the first thing. Second, simplify the licensing processes. Right? So it removes the need of this general trading license for the Indian ships. The licensing will be given easily. The point is that the government of India is trying to smoothline the license process. Right? So that means reducing the red tape. Right? Red tape means delaying the delaying the renewal process or something like this. That means once we know that the renewal process has become easier, the more and more people will try to participate into the more proactive form, right? Second, it introduces a structured license system for foreign vessels involved in the coastal trade, right? The third one is National Strategic Plan. It actually mandates a national coastal and island shipping strategic plan, which is reviewed every 2 years by a multi-stakeholder committee. So the committee will be determining the exact process. It promotes even multimodal integration with inland waterways and region-specific maritime development. Fourth, the data-driven governance. It proposes a national database for coastal shipping to facilitate policy decisions, coordinations, and investor confidence through real-time updated sectoral data, something like this. And it even promotes a inclusive and the cooperative governance, right? How? It encourages participation of states and the UTs through a committee under the clause 8.3 to oversee routine planning, infrastructure, and regional maritime priorities. So ultimately, this is talking about that the more coherence of the government plus private will be there, right? Now, certain factual data regarding the state of maritime sector in India at this moment. How? India handles 95% of the trade by volume and 70% by volume via the by value via the maritime routes. It hosts 12 major and 200 minor ports strategically locating on the global shipping lines. Expanding port capacity. The cargo handling, this cargo handling at the major port increased by 87%, reaching to over 1629 million tons as well. One very specific information as well. For say there is a term called turn around, or we may say the one average thing is average turn around time. What it is? The average turnaround time, you may understand that suppose a cargo ship reaches to the platform or to the port. So whatever the material, the goods, the commodities under this thing, usko बैठ के उतारा जाएगा. It will be deloaded, and then again the cargo will be reloaded with the another material so that the ship to reach to the another area. So the time which is reloaded, right, and the first the deloaded and the reloaded. So the time taken for this process is called the average turnaround time. You will be mesmerized that earlier the time in India was 2.97 days. Earlier. At this moment, just because of the government of India's efforts, it has gone down to around 1 day, or even I would say the lesser than 1 day aspect. It's around 0.9798 days at this moment. That the cargo will come to India at the port, and within a day it may leave the port to the another destination. So it's streamlining the business process, right? Global standing. India ranks 38 among of 139 countries in the World Bank Logistics Performance Index 2023. This is another part. Now ship recycling, this thing. India is the third largest ship recycler globally, holding 30% of the global market share, with Alang in Gujarat as the world's largest ship breaking yard. Very important information. And the FDI, the government export 100% FDI under automatic route, right? What is the FDI? This is foreign direct investment. That means one single person, if they want to invest into X company in India, then they may invest up to 100,000. I mean 100% of the equity capital. But automatic route, they need to give this information regarding their investment, right, to one of the branch of 30 days investment, one of the branch of the RBI. This is the automatic route system, right? So these efforts contributed to export worth 451 billion in fiscal year 23. So this is the exact data, the thing that you need to understand. Now this is the practice question, again visible over your screen, right? So now let's discuss today's decoded topic, which is visible over your screen, that impact of tariff on India. So Trump has recently tried to impose 50% tariff on India, and although it has given 1 month timeline for sure. But the point before we understand that what exactly we are going to cover in this topic will be that what is the Trump gurus against the India, how tariff help reduce the trade deficit, the impact of US tariff of India, what India can do, and conclusion, right? But the point before we actually start these things, we need to understand that can we say that nowadays this is a tariff diplomacy? Tariff diplomacy. What is tariff diplomacy? Witness that it refers to the process. It refers to the process of the strategic use of import or export tariffs as the instrument of the foreign policy, right? So we are using, I mean the USA is using the import export tariff as an instrument of the foreign policy. Why? Because it will definitely impact rather, or we can say that we can write like this, that it will definitely, rather than just economic tool, to influence the other nation into the US game. Purpose is that I am going to threat you, I am going to give you a threat that I am going to impose a tariff. So you need to listen to me. This might be the reason of this tariff diplomacy that is going on at this moment. Now the point is India is the lone country where the 50% of the tariff has been granted? Answer is no. In the month of February 2025, you know that there were two major countries. First is Canada, the recent neighbor, and the Mexico, where the tariffs were being imposed. Again in the month of April, right, Trump Sahab imposed the tariff on the China again. Now in the month of August, now it has said that I am going to put a tariff on India, and the same time just a certain days back they said that we are going to put on Brazil as well. Now we may say that he has even in the month of this March has put a reciprocal tariff, right, initiative, that if country is imposing 18% tariff on my products, I will impose 18% on the same product. This is reciprocal tariff. So what exactly the purpose? What is he trying to do with these things? This matters a lot, right? So in general, we may say that what are the reasons, or the point we may say that it could be seen as shift from traditional diplomacy to economic coercion. That means we are going to put you under the extreme pressure economically, so that ultimately because of fear or because of the loss of economic might, you need to listen to us. For example, they threat India to put 50% of the tariff, and just after one day there has been now news that India will have a loss of 0.6% of the GDP growth next year. So that kind of loss can be can be visualized with this kind of threat as well. First thing. Second thing, that tariffs used to shape global alliance, right? That means earlier we were witnessing that the country was moving towards focusing on the independent economic policy, independent foreign policy. So perhaps this might be one of the reason again that put the extreme pressure, so that the independent policy framework will be diminished, and again they will come under the influence of USA, right? Moving further, the third point that we could sustain, or we can understand that why we are witnessing this thing will be, that third point will be that it even undermines the multilateral institutions. Multilateral institutions like World Trade Organization, WTO, right? There are certain rules and regulations with which the countries are bound to follow under the aegis of the rules of the World Trade Organization, and if they need to change something, that there is a proper discussion used to be done. But this threatening of tariff definitely undermines the multilateral institutions at this moment. Now, after all those things, the point that comes to our mind is that earlier we already had witnessed that once they tried to put Russia under the tariff sanction or something, Russia did not listen to them. What China did? China said that if you are imposing 50% tariff upon me, the China imposed the 50% tariff. US imposed 100%, China imposed 200%. So that thing was visible. But now what comes to India, what India needs to do and how India tried to maintain it. The India tried to maintain it with the calm and composed procedure. That means India did not retaliate. India did not retaliate. But rather India go with a very rational view. You must have heard that during a press conference of one of the newspaper, the Patrakar, he asked that the journalist, he asked that what about USA having the import and export with the Russia? On the answer to it, Trump said, I do not know. So India has played very cautiously and very calmly as well. This is the Indian approach, right? Now, why this approach? Because if India is going to have a fight with the USA, it will definitely going to harm Indian consumer in a shorter term, right? Second thing, it may worsen our trade deficit. Trade deficit with USA. So India is going cautiously, right? So this is the approach. Now, in the light of it, one more thing as well, that once the USA has started this particular tariff war, and in the realm of it, we have understood how India exactly has responded. 2 and 3 things that we need to understand as the outcomes. Outcomes for, say, we know that now Russia, India, China are coming together. A bloc is going to develop. It has been in all over the news nowadays. Second, the BRICS development. The Lula da Silva Sahab of Brazil, he just called our Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, and they discussed something, and they tried to even make sure that the dollar dependency must be reduced and a common currency should take place, so that the smooth transaction of business will be taken place. It will even lead to better South and South cooperation, right? Because this has been there as well. But moreover, nowadays majority of the people are saying that this is a tactic of the Trump. How? We know that recently there has been a say, we don't know it will take place or not, but there has been a say that Trump and Putin is going to meet to discuss the peace process regarding the Ukraine-Russia war. This might be a scenario that while going on the negotiation, Trump is trying to give a signal to the Russia that you need to listen to me. Why? Because you were dependent upon the import, the export that you were doing to certain countries. And I have categorized, targeted all those major countries like China, India, Brazil, with which you are having your relationship in a better mode. So you listen to me, otherwise I'll put tariff on those people so that they will stop taking, import from your side. They will seek for that diversification, more benefit to the USA, and you'll get doomed. This kind of scenario is being visible nowadays. So under this entire gamut, the structure that we have just generated and just talked about, now we'll understand what are the issues, why it has been witnessed. There was the general point that we discussed. Now with respect to only India, the first is, it's just not about the Russia, right? The move is less about Indian importing Russia energy, but more about pressuring India into a trade deal favorable to USA. Second, a perception of protectionism. Trump views India as one of the most protectionist countries with high trade and non-trade barriers, and he already has criticized this thing earlier as well. Third, trade deficit concern. He believes that the barriers contribute to the US trade deficit with India, where the US imports more than the India than it exports. So it's a favorable condition, and Trump has already 2 and 3 times has said that Mr. Modi is a tough negotiator. So with that perspective, we may thinking that he must use this tariff diplomacy as an economic tool just to put pressure up against the India, right? Now, how the tariff help reduce the trade deficit with respect to USA? First, tariff as a tax on import. So a 50% tariff makes Indian goods more expensive for the US consumers. That means the reducing demands for those imports. Earlier, you were buying one article for $1, but now you are buying it for $1.5. So ultimately, the people say that I need to buy, I need to spend more money, so I'm not gonna buy it. So that will be the same case. Second, the tariffs as negotiation tool, already had discussed that it is just a pressure to India to trade deal that helps the US. Third, opening Indian markets. The US may push India to buy more US goods to help balance the trade relationship. We may witness this thing especially with the help of the defense relationship. How? They have just rejected the F-35 jet deal. I mean, India rejected. Earlier, we already has rejected the aspect of THAAD, and we bought on S-400. So these things were earlier there as well, right? So perhaps these are the reasons that they are trying to put pressure against the India. Now, the impact of the US tariff on India in both positive and the negative way. The first is trade disruptions. So a negative way is that disrupts business contracts and supply chain between the US exporters and the US buyers. But positive impact is that it encourages diversification of trade partners beyond the USA, and this is the major thing which had been witnessed. And India has already done this thing in the past as well. Remember the case when the USA tried to put a sanction against the Iran, and India were having certain oil from the Iran. The import of oil were there. At this moment, even India diversified, having import of the oil from the Iran towards Russia and the Venezuela kind of countries. So this diversification fortifies this kind of thing. Second, impact on small business. So the small scale firms lose export orders to countries with lower or no tariff. But on the other part, it will pushes Indian firms to innovate and promote the competitiveness, which is the main thing of the Make in India. Third, competitor countries gain market share due to lower cost. But it motivates Indian firms to adopt better technology and practice again the part of innovation. Employment. There must be certain job losses, right, in labor intensive sectors, such as the textiles, the food processing, etc. But it may even stimulate the local production, the domestic job creation under the Atmanirbhar Bharat part. And you have witnessed this thing, that Prime Minister Modi has come forward and has started asking to the people that work in India, produce in India, even to the Indian people. They're asking, giving a message to the Indian people that buy Indian goods. So these things are being witnessed nowadays. Fourth, the fifth part, the GDP may fall more than 0.5%. This is exactly 0.6% that I just quoted. But it triggers discussion around the economic reforms and the manufacturing growth in India as well. Profitability of the firms will definitely go towards the lower margin part, right, which may no absorb the tariff shock, but it encourages cost efficiency and the improved productivity in the business cycle in India. Second last, the sentiment in the investment cycle is always necessary. So we know that this will definitely deter the sentiment scenario in India. Among the Indian business for sure. But it could lead to a stronger trade diplomacy and better negotiated trade deals from the side of India to the other countries. And in near future, that might be detrimental to the US, this export scenario for sure. Imagine a scenario that you are going to put a lot of pressure and India says, okay, I'm not going to do business with you. Why I'm quoting this thing? Because you go with the data of the government of India. In the last particular 3 to 4 years, majority of the time the government of India started having its export import, or I would say the trade negotiation with the Indonesia. So already that the diversification has started from the side of India, right? And the last, the long term structural changes. The over dependence on one export market like US is export as vulnerability. So मुझे लगता है that in near future the government of India will be more focused regarding having a trade negotiation and a deal with not only with the USA but to other countries. This is as usual as witnessed in the case of the defense deal that India has does. Why in defense deals only? Because India has rhetorically understood this thing over the 1998 to 2020 scenario. And this is a long case, but I'm not going to explain that part. But India had witnessed this thing, especially during the Kargil war when USA said no to the India to giving the satellite images. Then especially afterwards, nowadays India is focusing more towards the the defense indigenization process. Now, long-term structure, there is a positive aspect as well. What is the positive aspect? That it gives an opportunity to build resilience through market and the product diversification. Now, what India can do or what India should do? So the 2 points that we quote, the India tried to maintain a balance. So, right, certain journalists ask certain questions, to the tough questions, I would say, to the US President Donald Trump. But still, what are the possible scenarios that India what may do? There's first the short-term step. Focus on limiting damage through careful trade negotiations with the US. This is what India has been successfully doing. Second, medium to long-term strategy. We may use it as a wake-up call for the domestic reforms. How? That we need to address issues like weak manufacturing growth, unskilled youth despite education, poor infrastructure, high logical costs, complicated business environment, need for GST cuts to boost consumption, lack of national human resource strategy, and all other things as well. On the other part, we need to take certain lessons from the China. How? That global trade respect economic strength, not the weaknesses. And perhaps we know that India is the 4th largest economy at this moment, right? So India is in a position that it is not only taking from the world, but India is a country which is giving to the world. And why giving? We must not forget the vaccine Matri initiative. The vaccine Matri initiative of the government of India. Even there are certain things that the comparison between the two countries, there are certain people who are saying, the journalists and the policy think tankers who are saying that the Chinese people came to the USA, learned something, built China. Indians came to USA with their skills, lived there, built USA. So this is the discourse that has started, right? And it will definitely put a pressure for sure. And India will have this better trade negotiation deal if these things will go on likely. Now the broader messages that it urges policymakers and the voters to prioritize economic reforms over the identity politics. And this is the conclusion that the imposition of EU tariff signals to shift towards aggressive economic statecraft in a global geopolitics, right? So I hope the point and with which narrative we try to diversify and try to correlate with different perspectives were easily understood to you, and I hope that you learned a lot with the help of today's video. Keep watching daily news analysis of Next IAS. Keep studying. Thank you very much.